Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is polish. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or ways that we use this verb. The first way you might hear polish used is to mean to make the surface of an object smooth and shiny by rubbing it. When I think of this first definition, I think of leather shoes. And in particular, my mind kind of goes back to childhood. My father wore leather dress shoes to work, and he would use these different materials and tools to try and make the shoes look very smooth, very clean, and shiny. A second way you might hear polish used is to mean to improve or add the finishing touches to something. I know as I have taken classes, I've had professors, teachers say things like, let's work on polishing this essay, right? So they want me to improve or maybe add to the thing that I'm writing. You should know that polish is a regular verb. To make the progressive form, all we need to do is add ing to form polishing. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are made by adding ed. Our base verb, polish, ends in an unvoiced sh sound. So our past tense ed ending is going to make a t sound. It should sound like this: polished, polished. Hopefully you can hear that T sound on the end. Now let's spend a moment to look at a couple phrasal verbs that you might hear with polish. The first is to polish off. Now this means that something is being finished. Could be referring to food being consumed or something being disposed of. And generally we're describing that action as occurring rather quickly and or easily. An example of this might be, wow, they polished off the donuts in no time. Right? So imagine someone has bought a box of donuts and all of a sudden, right, they're consumed, they're eaten very quickly. Another phrasal verb you might hear is to polish up. This kind of connects back to that second definition. We were talking about refining, improving upon something. So when we polish up on something, we're practicing or studying that particular topic or subject in order to get better, in order to improve. An example of this: are you polishing up your English? Right? Good chance the answer is yes if you're watching these videos. Now let's continue practicing our verb of the day, polish, in a couple different verb tenses. Today we're going to practice the present perfect and the simple future using will. We'll start with the present perfect. We use this verb tense to either describe an activity that started in the past and continues into the present, or to describe something that happened at an unknown point in the past. Many times you'll see textbooks, grammar books refer to this as the indefinite past tense. To make the present perfect, I need two parts. I need have or has, and that's going to be based on what my subject is. So if my subject is I, you, we, or they, I'll use have. And if my subject is he, she, or it, I'll use has. So have or has, and then I use the participle form of the verb. And because polish is a regular verb, it looks just like the past tense. An example of this might be, this music school has polished rough-cut diamonds of youth and changed their lives. Saw this in an article recently talking about a particular music school that's tried to reach low-income families. And again, it had this effect of helping them improve. Really ties back to our second definition there. Now, if I want to make a negative present perfect sentence, I'm going to do that. Again, I'll start with have or has, then I'll use not, and then the participle form of the verb. You might hear some people use the contraction form, haven't or hasn't, and then the participle. An example here: she hasn't polished her speech yet. Okay, so maybe somebody has written a draft here of her speech, right, but hasn't really tried to refine it or improve upon it yet. Finally, we can ask yes or no questions in the present perfect. Our structure here is to start with have or has, whichever form matches our subject, and the subject comes next, then the participle form of the verb. You can see that in the example, have they polished off the leftovers? So again, this ties back to our phrasal verb. So we're talking about have they eaten all of the leftover food? Now let's take a look at the simple future using will. Uh, we can describe things happening in the future a number of different ways, but you tend to see will with predictions and promises. You might see it with offers as well. And the nice thing about using will in the simple future is that our structure is will and then the base verb. So subject doesn't matter. That's always our structure, whether it's I, you, we, they, he, she, or it. So an example here. These accessories will polish your look for the office. I saw this sentence recently as I was doing a little bit of reading. Many people have been working from home for over a year or over two in some cases. And now more and more people are headed back to working in an office. And this article was talking about kind of how to sort of dress up and maybe be a bit more formal than we had gotten used to being as we've been working from home in our sweatpants and comfy clothes. So this was saying this is going to improve kind of how professional you may or may not look. Now, if I want to make a negative simple future sentence, my structure is going to be subject, will, not, and then the base verb. You will hear some people use the contraction form of will not. That's won't, won't. Okay, you can see that in my example here. I won't polish the floors before the party. Right? Why am I going to try and make them shiny and clean? Right? There's just going to be a bunch of people walking over it. So maybe my idea is that I'll do it after the party. Finally, we can ask yes or no questions in the simple future using will. Our structure here will be to start with will, then we'll have our subject, and then the base verb. You can see that here with will these scratches polish out? So sometimes as cars come into contact with other things, get scratched, some people will try and again, kind of tying back to that first definition of rubbing something in order to make it smooth and shiny. That's what they're talking about doing here. Can we kind of get those scratches to not appear any longer? Now, let's spend a moment looking at some words related to our verb of the day. And the first word we're going to look at is just the noun form of this word. So, exact same spelling, exact same pronunciation. When I use polish as a noun, I can be referring to some type of substance that's going to be applied to something in order to either make it smooth or shiny as it is applied or as it is rubbed. So, one way you might hear it is, what color of nail polish do you want? Right? So many people will hear that if they're painting their nails, nail polish. Right? But there are all types of different polishes for different items in your home, as well as for kind of our appearance. A second way we can use the noun polish is to refer to the act of rubbing something in order to make it kind of clean and shiny. So, an example of this. These shoes need a good polish. So that article A there is helping indicate to me that this is being used as a noun. Another related noun you might hear is a polisher. And so generally we're talking about using some kind of tool in order to polish surfaces. Again, make them smooth, make them shiny. An example here. We rented a floor polisher before we put our house up for sale. So here, someone has gotten some better equipment than just what they normally use, again, trying to make their house look very nice, very attractive in order to sell it. Now, our next group of related words have, as you're looking at it, I'm sure noticing the exact same spelling here. So we're looking at Polish, an adjective, and Polish, a noun. And I hope as I'm saying this, you're noticing, wait, that sounds a little bit different. And it does. So in this second set of words, we're going to pronounce the word with a long O sound. And when I use Polish as an adjective, I'm talking about someone or something that relates to the country of Poland or the people who live there. So an example of this might be Polish communities have been helping Ukrainians who have been fleeing. So that is something that's been in the news a great deal. I've seen different figures and numbers. I think it's over 1 million now of Ukrainians who have sought a safer place to stay until the war is over. You might also hear Polish used as a noun to refer to the language that people largely who live in Poland speak, but we know there are people outside of Poland who speak this language. In fact, estimates are that over 38 million people speak Polish. So here, again, we're referring to the language. So some of my students have asked before, has this has come up in reading, like, well, how am I going to know? Should I say Polish or should I say Polish? Well, one thing to notice is with the long O, the the P, the first letter, is always going to be capitalized, right? So this is proper because we're referring to groups of people or a language. So that might be one indicator. If you see a capital P in the middle of a sentence, like good indication, that's what it is. And then looking for other clues to see if it's part kind of connected to um, other verbs, right? So if you saw am, is, are, has, had, didn't, right? Things like that, that might help indicate to you that, oh, that's how that's being used. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.